Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We begin today with an update on Oklahoma's wheat crop. We're joined here in the field by Jeff Edwards, our Extension Small Grain Specialist. And Jeff, just kind of begin with an update on how the crop is looking overall.
Well, the crop is looking much better than it was a couple of weeks ago. We've gotten rain across most of the state. We were getting pretty dire straits. We needed a rain, especially in northwestern Oklahoma. We were fortunate enough to get that. That has really brought our crop to life in terms of growth. The crop has greened up. Most people have probably noticed a lot greener crop out there. Our wheat that was sown early for wheat pasture, it's come along, and I think we're going to have some grazing. I expect to see cattle out on wheat pasture soon.
Now, you pulled a plant here from your research plots. What is the plant telling you at this stage?
Well, what I'm looking for here in terms of turning cattle out on wheat pasture, we need a good crown root system on the plants. The first roots that come out of the plants will just go downward, and they don't do much to anchor the plant in the soil. What you need is a good extensive root system generating from the crown of the plant. And once you have that, the plants will be anchored in the soil much better, and it's less likely the cattle will actually pull them out of the ground while they're grazing. So you have less damage to the crop once you have that crown root system, and that's what you're looking for before turning cattle out onto wheat pasture.
And some plants or some fields are already getting to that stage, and then the others will follow suit in the next few weeks?
Some of our fields are already there, especially in southwestern Oklahoma where we've had a little more moisture and wheat went in early. We have some fields that are ready for cattle now. As you move into north central and northwestern Oklahoma, those fields, they're not far away with the moisture, but it wouldn't hurt for them to have another week or two of growth before we really get a lot of cattle out there grazing on them heavily.
Let's talk management and some of the things to keep in mind for fall that will set producers up to be successful in the spring.
Absolutely. So many times when we're managing a wheat crop, we become reactionary. We should be proactive on many of our management decisions. The one that comes to mind this fall, of course, is weed control. And you know, in Oklahoma, we do an excellent job of fertilizing our weed crop. When you look at what we're doing in the fall, we're putting out nitrogen pre-plant in the form of anhydrous, we're putting phosphorus out there, and when you have weeds out there and you let them grow through the fall, they're just taking up that nitrogen that you paid 50 cents a pound for. So why not go ahead and control those weeds in the fall? We've got great spraying weather this fall so far. Go ahead and get those weeds knocked out. The other thing that we need to do this fall is be thinking about our nitrogen management. Still time to get a nitrogen-rich strip out there. If you want to be really accurate on those nitrogen decisions, which we need to do, you need that nitrogen-rich strip out there. Both of those, weed control and getting a good firm handle on nitrogen management, would be what I consider the base for intensive wheat management, which gets talked about quite a bit these days, but that would be the base for a good management system.
Of course, in Oklahoma, we all talk about the weather, think about the weather, and for the wheat, sort of can go in and out of dormancy this time of year?
Yeah, well, soon we'll have our first hard freeze, and that's kind of the first sign to the wheat crop. Well, it's time to lay off the growth a little bit and maybe go into dormancy. Here in the southern plains, really when you get below central Kansas, we go in and out of dormancy quite a bit, and that's one reason sometimes we have a bit of an issue with winter hardiness of varieties. In more northern latitudes, they go into dormancy and the wheat stays dormant. In the southern plains, we'll be dormant for a while. We'll get a warm spell and the wheat will come out of dormancy. So it can create some issues if those temperature changes are too rapid. Most of the time we're okay. The good thing about us coming in and out of dormancy is generally whenever we have those warm spells and we come out of dormancy, it creates a spraying opportunity again to kill some of those weeds.
Okay, great advice. Jeff Edwards, thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. A fast-moving system with little rain for the state again this week. A rainfall map from Wednesday shows how most of the state missed this one. Even at Broken Bow, with the highest recorded rainfall, they collected only 39/100ths of an inch on Wednesday. The missed rains are really showing up in northwest to north central Oklahoma, a major wheat production area. If we look at the soil moisture at the 10-inch depth, in the brown areas on our map, the fractional water index values range from 0 to 0.3. 0 is the driest on this index, 1 the wettest. Across the Panhandle, southwest, south central, and eastern parts of the state, we see mostly green colors indicating good to excellent soil moisture at the 10-inch depth. This pattern is mimicked on a map of the percent of plant available water from the surface down to 16 inches. Soils in the brown area only have about 30% of the plant available water they can hold. A 30-day rainfall map shows the low rainfall areas we saw with low soil moisture. It is the blue map areas, less than an inch of rain over the last 30 days. Here's Gary with the latest drought monitor map and hope for more rain.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, it was a really bumpy week, mostly lots of wind, very little rainfall, but we did see some drought improvement across southern Oklahoma, thanks mostly to that rain from last week. So let's take a look at the latest drought monitor map and see where we're at. We did see further reductions in the drought and even in the abnormally dry conditions across southern over into eastern Oklahoma. Now, unfortunately, up into north central Oklahoma, that really got pounded by that dry air and that wind this week. We did see that go up to moderate drought all the way up to the Kansas border and into Kansas. So a little bit of improvement in some areas, a little bit of intensification in other areas. Now the good news is, if you've been looking at the forecast, it does look like rainfall this coming week. We do see, as you look at this from the Climate Prediction Center, we do see increased odds of above normal precipitation across most of Oklahoma. And the good news doesn't end there. As we go out from November 21st through December 4th, so the 3 to 4 week outlook, we also see increased odds of above normal precipitation. So if any or all of that comes true, that should definitely help our drought outlook for the next month. Now, following that, we enter our 3 driest months of the year, the winter months. So whatever we get then, aided by El Nino, will certainly help us as we go into the spring of next year. Let's hope for a bunch. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
This past week, the latest WASDE report came out, and Kim, what was in that report?
Well, the news in it was mostly bad. You look at wheat, and let's just talk about ending stocks. They increased all wheat ending stocks to 911 million bushels. That's a 45 million bushel increase. It was at the very top of the pre-release estimates. You look at corn, they increased the ending stocks for corn to 1,760 million. That's a 173 million bushel increase. Surprise, to say the least. Soybeans, they increased the ending stocks to 465 million. That's a 36 million increase, slightly above the average of the trade release estimates or the pre-release estimates.
What does that mean for prices?
Well, just as you'd expect, prices went down. You look at wheat prices, the bad news, wheat prices went down 13 cents. During the day they were down a little more than that, but that's from close to close was 13 down. You look at corn, they were down 21 cents, and beans was down 20 cents. So the bad news is prices went back down to the bottom.
What's the good news?
Well, if you look at the good news is that the prices went down, but they held at the support prices of wheat. It went down and on that December contract, and it held at that 460. You look at corn and it held at that 360, and you look at beans and it held at 860. I think that with this bad news that we had from the WASDE report, prices, they did go down, but not very much, and they didn't break the bottoms. And I think that's a very positive sign that it's just going to take something spectacular to get prices to go lower than they are right now.
Okay, let's talk about the Oklahoma wheat crop right now. How does planted acres look with that?
Well, I've been talking to the elevator managers and some producers, and the planted acres are probably slightly less than last year. If I had to put, my stamp of approval on something, I'd say they was the same as. I think canola acres are going to be down another 50%. I think your summer crop acres this next year are going to be higher than they were this year. So I think wheat slightly lower to the same. Your canola less, and your summer crops are probably higher.
Where are we with conditions as far as all those crops?
Oh, our wheat looks good. Of course, we hadn't planted those other crops,
Yeah.
but from talking to the producers and the elevator people, most of the wheat that we've got out there, it's up and it's in relatively good condition right now.
Taking all of that information into account, what should Oklahoma producers do whenever they want to market some of their commodities?
If they got wheat in the bin, the odds of wheat prices getting any lower are slim. But for prices to go up, we're going to have to lose Argentina and Australia. Their harvests are well underway. Not any surprises there. So I think that they're really going to have to, for higher prices, they're going to have to wait till next June, July, or August. If I had wheat in the bin, I'd pick me out a date that I wanted to get it sold, and I'd stagger it in the market between now and then.
Is there a date, say in the next 3 months, that you think that the market will start moving?
Only if we do something to the crop that's in the ground. We got moisture. That's probably not very likely. I don't think there's going to be any surprises in Argentina. So I think we're just going to get carried. Now, export demand could increase because we lowered export demand by 50 million bushels down to around 800 million.
Right.
We could get some surprises. But right now, our price is above the world market. It just doesn't look very good. But there is that possibility that prices go up. I just can't see why they would.
Okay, Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hay feeding is, of course, a big part of the nutritional requirements for beef cows all across the Southwest as we go into the late fall, winter months. Knowing how much hay we have to have on hand to meet the needs of our cows this winter is very, very important, as well as knowing how much hay we need to take out at each feeding. Well, let's do some calculations and see if we can help answer these questions. We know that a 1,200-pound pregnant cow, one that's going to have a calf, say, next March, is able to consume about 2% of her body weight voluntarily of good dry grass hay, something that might be 8% crude protein. Now, 2% of that 1,200-pound cow, of course, is 24 pounds, but this hay is not 100% dry matter. We know that even though it looks dry, it still has someplace between 7 and 10% moisture in it. Let's use an example of about 92% dry matter. That means instead of taking out 24 pounds of hay to meet our needs, we've got to take out 26 pounds on an as-fed basis. But the story still isn't over. Once we take that hay out to those cows, put it in the feeders, we're going to have some hay wastage. Estimates are that we'll have anywhere from 6 to 20%, perhaps even more hay wastage, depending upon the kind of feeder that we use and how we feed them. That means that we've got to not take out just 26 pounds of hay per cow. We need to up that to about 30 pounds to cover for that hay wastage. So, as we're looking at this from a standpoint of that dry pregnant cow, then we're going to have to take out 30 pounds per head per day and have that much stored as we go into the winter. Once that cow calves next March, even though she weighs a little bit less, she can consume more hay and will on a voluntary basis. Now, instead of 30 pounds of hay per head per day that we need to, in order to meet her nutrient requirements, we're going to have to up that even more to about 36 pounds to cover the dry matter, to cover the hay wastage that is going to occur. So knowing these figures, I think, could help us make sure that we've got enough hay as we go into the winter time, and we know about how many bales we need to take out each time we go to feed these cows to have the proper amount of nutrition for these cows as they go through the winter, stay in good body condition at calving time, maintain that condition into the breeding season so that we have an excellent rebreeding percentage and a good calf crop the following year. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Now for a lesson on soil compaction. Here's our soil and water conservation specialist, Jason Warren.
This is a continuous graze out wheat field with a summer grazing component. And so this field is grazed for about 6 months on the wheat side, and then we run cattle on this for 2 months in the summertime, and that's been going on for the last 2 years. And generally when we talk about compaction and no-till and grazing, I'm a little apprehensive to suggest to someone that they do what we've done on this field, but it's actually worked out pretty well. We have, we started grazing the first, we no-tilled into a graze out wheat field, and they've been no-tilling ever since. And I say I'm a little apprehensive to recommend that because some soils don't respond very well. In fact, right below my feet is an example of a small area of soil in this otherwise pretty successful field where we haven't had a good establishment of the wheat yet. We've actually planted this for a second time. In contrast, the rest of the field, we have a really nice stand of wheat. And this was planted about 30 days after the termination of the crabgrass that was on this field this summer. And by the reason I mentioned this soil below us is this is a sandier type sandy loam soil. And then a great deal of the field is a fairly nice loam. These sandy soils, once they become bare and they don't have, if they don't have a lot of root growth and like root pores in them, they can become very dense and very problematic. And so that's a soil where if I had an entire field, I would probably be apprehensive about putting cattle on it the first few years of no-tilling until I can develop some root channels and some more stable organic matter that would hold it open. In contrast, just right here where we have a pretty good stand of wheat, it seems like we can do it fairly successfully. And then some other things you see, if you look real closely, is right here, that's a cattle path. And so these are all things that guys could observe if they ever try to no-till in a grazing system. It can be very successful. About 90%, 95% of this field has been successfully established with a no-till drill this season. But you do have these small areas, and that's very hard and very dense. And I can't jump on it and get a shovel in the ground. And if you look at that soil, it's very dry. And it's a problem. In contrast, right next to it, I have nice moist soil. But like I say, and that is why I'm very apprehensive in suggesting that someone go into a no-till system with grazing the first year. We want to accumulate some residue, and we want to accumulate some structure in that soil before we do it. And I'll reiterate this: you want to maintain residue, because we think that condition where the soil is dry and hard is compaction, and it is a form of compaction. And when we dig in it, it very much looks like compaction because the ground is hard. But if I were to actually measure the density of that soil, it's probably not that much different than the moist soil behind me or to my side. The reason it is hard and perceived as compacted is because it's dry. And it's dry because it's crusted, and it's crusted because it's bare. And multiple years, this area was probably bare after the first crop we planted here, and it's been that way since. So it's a problem that's accumulated over time, and it'll just get worse. And what you'll see where guys have just continuously grazed a field completely bare, crop after crop, is the entire field looks that way, and it's a disaster. And they're from a no-till perspective, and they will ultimately run a chisel or something through it to break that up.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk about a lockout on maybe electrical appliances or power tools.
Yeah, you've got some stuff that you'd prefer not to to get operated, or you have some little hands around that you want to keep safe, there's some real quick, easy ways to do that.
One is just to take a kind of a key ring and put that onto the plug, and as you do that, now it cannot be plugged in.
Another little simple thing you can do is get the little TSA locks for your luggage for traveling, and you can run those through there, and then you actually have a lock on there if you have genius children that can undo these little key rings.
So if you've got that appliance or power tool that you need to keep from being plugged in by someone who's not supposed to, here's a little tip to help make that happen. We'll see you next week on the Shop Stop.
As the year starts to wind down, many Oklahoma producers are already taking a look ahead at how their finances may be shaping up for 2016. To get the conversation started, we recently caught up with a well-known ag economist.
There's a phenomenal amount of wealth, not only in this country, but the world. And it's changing the demand for food in a way that's good for American farmers, okay? Because we're going to have to increase meat production. That means we got to do it in a way that we're going to have better increases and continued increases in crops. So it's got a phenomenally good implication for American agriculture.
New Mexico State University's Lowell Catlett was one of many speakers featured at this year's Rural Economic Outlook Conference. Among the topics, how American agriculture is taking advantage of technology to help increase production. Matt Waits oversees a global ag software company headquartered in Stillwater.
So today the things that are really pretty mainstream is that most farmers use some form of GPS steering systems on their equipment. A very large percentage have variable rate fertilizer applications going down. We're seeing a lot bigger use of variable rate seeding technologies. So there's a lot of on-farm use of this technology today. The exciting part of the future is when we can really apply data science to that and really get into big data analysis where we're leveraging these data sets along with weather data and data from the government and soil type data, these kinds of things, and to be able to analyze that and apply models to that.
As far as the economy goes, Catlett is an optimist.
It's a strong economy. We know how to manage margins. We've always lived on thin margins. We know how to do that. We know how to do that better than anybody. So if corn's $6 or if corn's $2.50, a good manager is going to make a margin. Okay? And they know how to do that. Best time ever to be in agriculture. Best time ever. We've never had such an opportunity for agritourism, for differentiated products. You got people wanting organic and free range right next to people that are trying to feed a hungry world. We've never had that in the history of agriculture. Best time ever.
Drip torch is one of the most essential tools that we have for lighting a prescribed burn. A drip torch is just a aluminum container, holds about 1.5 gallons of fuel. The fuel that you use in this drip torch is a mixture of gasoline and diesel. So what you're going to do is you're going to undo this lock ring on top, set it down, and then this is the spout knob. You're going to take it off, and it's got a spot right over here next to it where you can put it in here to keep it from setting loose. And all you're going to do is pull it out and flip it straight over. And when you do that, you'll notice this curly Q in the spout and the handle. You want the curly Q facing away from the handle, and then you're going to take the lock ring, place it over the top of that. And all you need to do is snug these things up. They've got rubber gaskets to help seal it. And then once you get down, then right above the handle, there's a vent. And you need to open it up 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn, get vent to get the thing started to run. All right, so now we've got it set up. We're ready to start our fire. We don't have anything set right now, so we got to light a fire. One of the best ways to do it, go ahead and just tip it over. It just works by gravity. Put a little bit of fuel out, of torch fuel out on some grass or some other fuel. You're going to take your lighter, you're going to light it. Make sure you have your gloves on. You need to you set it up with your gloves off, but you're going to operate it with your gloves on. Everything else you do with it. So all you have to do is bend down, stick it in there. This wick, make sure it's got fuel in it, and that's what holds your fire. Then all you have to do is tilt it down, and you can see the fuel dripping off, and you want it just dripping off that wick and lighting, and you just hold it at a down angle, and then you can walk, lighting a string of fire as you go. If you are going to stop burning for any short period of time, the best thing to do is to put it out. And there's 3 ways that you can put a torch out. One of them is you can take your gloved hand and wrap it around the wick and smother the fire that way. The other way is you can blow it out. One thing you need to be careful about blowing it out is coming back, especially if you have facial hair and you like it. You may lose it if you're not careful. Finally, the other way is just a combination of both of them, where you grab it and blow and put it out. Drip torches are one of the easiest and the best method of lighting fires. Very safe to operate if you just remember just a few little things about keeping everything safe.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone. And remember, Oklahoma Ag starts at sunup.